Alright, I'm gonna cut right to the chase. I talked a lot in the first video about how I wanted my game to take inspiration from both Sekiro and Smash Bros while still standing on its own. But if we're being honest, the first version of the demo was just a slapped together shell of Sekiro's mechanics with a bit of analog aiming. This was fair given my goal was just to have something released so I could get feedback and work out my next steps, but going forward I want MIDAS to truly stand on its own as my work, and that starts with more original mechanics. Now, I've been trying a few different ideas to see what sticks. I want something that really speaks hype and gets people excited to try the game out themselves. Oh yeah, I think that could work. This is MIDAS version 0.2, and you'll notice it shares only a handful of similarities with version 0.1, which was absolutely the right direction to go. An important step in any creative endeavor is knowing when to throw what you have and start fresh, or as it's often called, killing your pet. And well, to be frank, I basically old yellered the first version. Now let's take a look at what we have, starting with what stayed. Basically, from the first version, it's just the gold shader that stuck around. I put a lot of work into the original, and given that's kind of the whole reason MIDAS has its name, it was obviously important to keep. I made small improvements to performance in addition to amping up the visuals with more contrast between gold and non-gold surfaces alongside some simple animation to add a bit of life into things. Outside of that, I like the overall feel of the arena in the first version, but felt like everything needed to be more engaged with the gameplay, hence the hole in the center. And like much of the other elements from the first version, I amped up the visuals to make everything look like a proper game. The idea of amping things up was something I tried to bring into the rest of the project too, with a bunch of extra sound effects and particles to add impact and really hone in on the style I want the game to have. Fighting games as a genre are notable for being cool just to look at. Further to that point, I wanted to reevaluate the gameplay experience that players would end up with. With the first version, I lean more towards Sekiro's style, but that game earns its reputation from the harsh learning curve it forces players to go through. This isn't something I want my game to have, so I think it would be best to look more at Smash Bros in this department. At the end of the day, anyone can pick up a controller and have a grand old time just spamming Falcon Punch, but at the same time, Melee also has these deep, technically demanding mechanics that drive the competitive scene. The unfortunate part is that, well, this unique balance of casual and competitive gameplay was largely unintentional on the developer's end. Melee was made in a year, and many mechanics competitive players use nowadays were likely viewed as glitches or not even known by HAL Laboratories. I think this is why so many Smash clones ultimately fail long term. They aim to replicate Melee's success, but you can't copy an accident. Or can you? This is where I talk about the main feature I'm introducing with this update, the Flail. I can't intentionally add jank or glitches to my game, but I can for sure add a dumb physics object as your main weapon and let the players find the jank themselves. I'll admit, it doesn't exactly behave like a flail. You can kind of hover it around and move it in strange ways, but this also allows for a greater degree of freedom in how you approach combat, which is my ultimate goal. You can charge up the flail, take aim, launch, and then while airborne, whip the chain around to manipulate its trajectory. This is really fun to mess around with, and I'm glad I was able to reuse part of the spear aiming from the first version to bring this feature to life. And I'm honestly just really proud of how the mechanic looks. It was a rare case of going from sketch to usable in-game with almost no hassle. This also leads directly into the other big change. I got rid of the other player. Not forever, but I was definitely biting off a bit too much by trying to add an entire CPU training section into the first demo. Simplifying things down leaves me with a lot more opportunity to refine what's already there, and in place of the different training modes is one of my favorite Smash minigames.
Break the targets!
Anyone who's even remotely familiar with Smash Bros has heard of Break the Targets, a fast-paced game mode that forces you to learn all the different mechanics each character has and pushes you to master them to achieve faster times. I can't think of anything more perfect to pair with my game. I really want to see how far you guys can push this. My best time was about
20 seconds.
And you can find a link to the video below if you want a good starting point, but I know it can go a lot lower. I could keep going on about the changes and plans for the future, but it's probably best if I leave things there and let you find everything out for yourself. As always, the current demo is available on my itch.io, and if you want more regular updates, I try to post to my Patreon whenever I add something new. Thanks again for watching. I have a lot of work left to do, so I'm gonna start doing that now. Later.